Hey, what's going on, guys? The newest Ghost of Yotei update just landed, and this one is packed with changes that are going to matter a lot if you spend your time in raids, nightmare missions, survival, or just grinding gear and trying to squeeze every bit of value out of your loadout. The biggest headline here is the arrival of Hell Mode for raid boss fights, and that already tells you what kind of mood this patch is in. This is not the kind of update that quietly tweaks one or two numbers and calls it a day. It is the kind that says, alright, you wanted more challenge, here you go. Because now players can take on raid bosses at a much harder level and earn new class cosmetics for beating those hell mode encounters. On top of that, raid missions now support matchmaking, which is a huge quality of life change for anyone who has ever tried to gather a squad and waited around too long for the missing pieces to show up. The game also adds a skip option straight to the raid boss for Dragon and Cydo missions, which the sort of convenience that saves time and gets people into the part they actually want to play faster. And for players who like the prestige side of progression, there is a new gear retirement system, where you can spend in-game currency to retire fully upgraded gear. There is no gameplay advantage attached to it, but your retirement count is visible to other players. And when you bow after retiring gear, it brings out a firefly effect that gives the whole thing a nice visual flourish. What makes this patch even more interesting is that it is not just about adding harder content and new rewards. It is also cleaning up a bunch of issues that players have probably felt in real matches. Sucker Punch says it fixed several rare crash scenarios, and that alone is welcome, because stability matters more than people sometimes give it credit for. There was also a fix for a bug where certain enemies could occasionally deal extra damage on some attacks, which sounds like one of those problems that could make a run feel unfair without you even knowing why. Weekly nightmare missions now have a matchmake to fill empty slots option, so if your team is short a player, the game can help fill the gap instead of leaving you stuck. Another big one is that players can no longer be disarmed during ultimate attacks, which should make those high-stakes moments feel a lot more reliable. At the same time, Tanegashima damage against bosses has been reduced, and lightning Tanegashima headshot damage has also been toned down. So if you were leaning on those setups to melt endgame enemies, you are going to notice the difference. Samurai and Shinobi also got an important fix, so their ultimates cannot be cancelled when they get hit, which should make those abilities behave the way players expect in the middle of chaos. There's even a fun survival change here. You can now pet these spirit animals, which is exactly the kind of detail that does not change the meta at all, but absolutely makes the mode feel more alive. And the patch keeps going with the kind of little fixes that make the overall experience feel smoother from session to session. You can now use emotes while waiting at gathering points, which is a nice touch for lobbies and group play. The Bohia rain card issue that could cause death after completing an incursion mission has been fixed, and Giant Bohia will no longer spawn inside defense zones in story missions, so a few frustrating edge cases have been taken out of the rotation. Daily bounties that were left unfinished will now refresh each day, which is the kind of change that quietly improves the routine for players who log in regularly and do their list of tasks. Shadow Snake also no longer attunes himself, which sounds like a very specific bug, but the kind of specific bug that can absolutely throw off a run when it happens. In the campaign menu, story and incursion missions now show completion checkmarks, so tracking progress should feel much cleaner. And weapon trail visuals have been enabled in Lobby Bamboo Strike, adding a little more style to the presentation. Even the leaderboard got attention, with a fix for an interface problem that prevented scrolling beyond the first page, which is exactly the sort of thing that can make ranking systems feel broken, even when the score itself is fine. So overall, this patch feels like a strong mix of harder endgame content, smarter quality of life changes, and a long list of fixes that should make the game feel more polished in all the places where players actually spend their time. If you're into raids, challenge runs, or just a smoother loop overall, this update gives you plenty to jump back in.